This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News.
Hockey Canada undertook a national survey which found that 45% of hockey parents were worried about the mental health of their children, the effect of being without organized sport, as, of course, this pandemic continues to wreak havoc with our lives and our sports. We were probably tuned in to the World Junior Hockey Championships, and we saw the head of Hockey Canada, Tom Rennie, talking about this very thing. Well, a good friend of ours, who just so happens to be a former captain of the Kitchener Rangers and a member of its alumni mentorship program, has also caught on to this and has some thoughts. And it's never a bad idea to call Ben. So that's what we did. Ben Finelli joins us for a chat this morning. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's great to hear. It's great to hear from you. It's always a great experience chatting with you. So thanks for thinking of me and thanks for having me.
Well, you're kind as always, because I think when I sent you the text to set this up, I said, why is it that I only text you when I need you for something, right? I should just text and say, hey, Fennells, how's it going? How's life? But no, it's like, come on the show. I need your perspective.
I appreciate it, though. Any opportunity is greatly appreciated. So, no, it's all good. And don't worry, I'll be texting you for a favor that I need at some point, I'm sure.
Perfect. That's how this relationship tends to work, isn't it?
Exactly.
You obviously saw the research and have some thoughts on the mental health toll that a lost season has, but also I think, in another vein, how we perhaps define these young men and even these men as they age by their careers as opposed to by their persons. What's your reaction to all of this?
Well, what's unfortunate, I mean, I can dive into the nitty-gritty, the philosophy and the empirical evidence and anecdotal evidence that I not only lived, but am now studying today. But it's unfortunate to see the article overall. I mean, it's an incredible article, and I want to participate in the conversation because it's unfortunate if this is the case. You said 45% of parents. And if you look at Hockey Canada, they have about, the rough research I did, about 640,000 young youth from 7 to 21 years old under their umbrella. And you take 45%, it's 288,000 individuals that are going to be a part of society for a long time to come. And already a quarter, not even, of their way through their life, they have this sort of neurosis, being anxiety, depression, due to the fact that one of an infinite multiplicity of opportunities to interact with the world is taken from them, temporarily, albeit. And I think there should be more uncovering of what's really going on, because that's not a good stat to hear, and it's not very optimistic looking forward for these young individuals.
So what do we need to do? What should this what alarm should be sounding based on what we are learning through all of this? Again,
not to dive too much into the complexities of the psychology side, but if you look at the issue and deeply rooted, right now today we'll look at the anxiety that is very much a symptom of the problem, or the depression that is a symptom of the deeply rooted problem. And Gabor Mate, an incredible Canadian doctor, always says, don't ask why the alcohol, or don't ask why the cell phone, ask why the pain that this habit has been turned into an addictive practice or maladaptive behavior. So where I go is, where is this coming from? Why is it that you take this one piece of someone away temporarily and there's such a big issue? And I actually just finished a paper on this in my schooling, and it comes down to this identity crisis. So these young men or women, young boys or girls, the youth, have a bit of an identity foreclosure, which is the idea of choosing an identity, or choosing this concept of something that defines you, which, on a separate note, I don't believe hockey itself is an identity. It's a medium in which you choose to interact with the world. But these youth have this identity foreclosure, meaning they're figuring out who they want to be very early in life, and earlier than what psychology or philosophy would actually, consider the proper time. And so you have these youth. I'm a hockey player. That's who I am. That's how I get my gratification, my excitement. That's where I get everything from. And you take that away. And so very easily you see where the maladaptive behaviors come in when something's taken away: the denial, displacement, intellectualization, suppression, all these issues that can lead to and cause the anxiety and depression. So I know I'm rambling, but if you come full circle of what can we do, well, let's bring that human side back, in that human development side back. And this isn't just a sport issue, right? Bring that human development side, the identity and the direction side back into these young individuals' lives. And really, quite simply, don't close that identity off so soon. Allow them to realize what they like, what they don't like, where they get gratification. Yes, I talk psychologically about this, but anecdotally, I lived this. I went back, you know this, you know my story. I went back into a game that almost took my life because I was in this identity crisis. And that's another conversation for another time. And it has its positives, it had its negatives, it had its risks, of course, which I like to think myself and my team around me calculated those risks. And I exited the game much earlier than I wanted to, and was forced through this process of now what is called identity diffusion, where you have this pushback. You're forced to figure out what other parts of your identity you want to figure out, and you have pushback because it's scary, and you're comfortable in that silo or that fishbowl that is your athletic identity, that you've considered your athletic identity. So, yeah, lots of work to do, but with the incredible coaches in Hockey Canada, I'll conclude in saying I was lucky with the Kitchener Rangers to have my identity developed more than a hockey player. I was blessed. I still have to do my own work individually outside of the game? Yes. But very much Steve Spott, Troy Smith, Mike McKenzie, Paul Fixer, Mike Van Ryan, Dan Liebold, yourself, Don Cameron, the collective group that I spent so much time with allowed me to become the person I am today, which I like to believe is a well-rounded individual.
Can you talk, Ben, about the struggle that you went through when you had to overcome this identity as a hockey player? Because as you've just mentioned, and we know because of your story, the hockey career that ended much sooner than you would have anticipated. So what happened to you, and what did you learn through that transition in your life?
So much to unpack. I would say simply there was one catalytical moment, I would say, in initially it was, what am I going to do? I don't even know what I like. Even worse, I think, is I don't know what I'm good at, because I've been told for so long and believed for so long that the best thing I could do is play hockey, and the best thing or my greatest skill was athletics and sport, and specifically hockey. So then all of a sudden you think, well, I have to go try and do something else, but the confidence isn't there. The fortitude isn't there. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with a really smart friend of mine that we connected with at university. So I was completing my courses at Laurier after playing, and this individual was doing his master's in business after already completing a philosophy degree. And he was having conversations with me about psychology and philosophy. And my internal narrative was like, geez, I can't believe this guy actually thinks I'm smart. I must be tricking him or something. Like, I shouldn't be having these conversations. And I actually outwardly said that to him. And he said, what are you talking about? He's like, I love talking to you about this. You have a different viewpoint, and I love the way you think about things. And it was that moment that I thought, okay, so maybe there is something else I can do. Maybe there is more to my identity and purpose and meaning in life. And I'll quote a local hockey individual, Greg Bignell, who has a connection to the Kitchener Rangers as well. And we were working on a project with Victus Academy in town. And he pulled me aside and left me with the most powerful concept in a nutshell that I share in every youth hockey room I go into now, is that he said when he was playing, he was up and down in the minors and started to feel like the game was controlling him. And he said, so all you have to do as a young athlete, I mean, this isn't a quick fix, but to me it's quite powerful. He said, ask yourself, who's in control? And because as athletes, we have this ego. We love to feel in control. I mean, not only athletes, everyone does, to have this sense of control. And so when you're playing that game and you don't feel like you're in control, you have to check and say, check that ego and reconsider how you're approaching the game, or maybe it's time to move on. And that's what he did. He was being forced to do things he didn't want to have to do in the game on a more of a fighting side back in the day, and had to ask himself, who's really in control here? Am I in control, or is the game controlling me? And not to tie things back into psychology, but simply that whole concept is going from a harmonious relationship with the sport, enjoying it, getting the fruits of it, and realizing, wow, this is great, and I'm learning from it, I'm growing through it, to a obsessive passion. So you go from this harmonious passion where things are good, and yeah, there's still struggles, but there's meaning in it, and you love doing it, to now this obsessive passion, which means you are doing it because of the fear of losing it, or the fear of what would I do if I didn't have this. So that's where some people can get to, and you see a bit of that today. Like you're asked the question. Hockey's being taken away from these individuals. Well, there needs to be that deeper identity where, okay, it doesn't matter if I'm wearing a hockey jersey today, my T-shirt, or my snow jacket and I'm out tobogganing. I need that deeper identity that I carry with me everywhere. And I think the perfect example of that, and I pump his tires too much, is Gabriel Landeskog.
I don't know that you can pump those tires too much. He's a pretty special guy. He really is. And it goes beyond it, because for Gabe, it does go beyond hockey, right? There is an identity to Gabriel Landeskog that goes beyond the game of hockey.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I think we need to bring into locker rooms, not only hockey, obviously all athletic locker rooms where, like I said, when we use the word identity in hockey, that's a medium which you choose to interact with the world in the identity of which you have. And when you nestle it up into this tiny one-sided idea or concept, it can be limiting, it can be scary, and you get to that living through fear and constantly on defensive. I can't screw this up. And trust me, I felt that making breakout passes, and you're triple thinking a simple breakout pass you've made your whole life. And, listen to a couple episodes on the podcast of past NHL players, Sean Matthias, Victor Reskovich, Joey Hishin, the list goes on. This isn't just me. This is very much a common existence across the game. But coming back to our friend Gabe, on the podcast we did together, he talked about his excitement and curiosity for firefighting. And it wasn't in a sense of just taking that hockey identity and planting it in firefighting. It was this deeper thirst for challenge and excitement in life. And that's what we need to work on establishing with the youth in sport, not just hockey.
I really like, Ben, the way you put this, that hockey is not the identity, but the medium through which we express our identity. So in light of that, and to continue the Gabriel Landeskog story here, how do we, is it incumbent, it sounds to me like it is, on organizations like Hockey Canada or the Canadian Hockey League to create something to instill in these players that they are more than hockey players?
I think you want to get good at something. What do we know you have to do? Well, it has to be more than 3 guest speakers coming in over the course of 9 months. There has to be some type of consistent, and that doesn't mean every day, and it doesn't mean taxing on their mental state, but a consistent narrative of some sort, or even the word curriculum comes to mind. I think that would be very powerful in the youth sporting space, and I believe this can be done really efficiently and rectify a lot of the problems that come up down the road. And I guess you could even use the words proactive and reactive. I think today one of the issues across the mental or behavioral health space, not only in sport, is a lot of the programs implemented are reactive to, okay, we know people are going to become anxious and depressed. Let's put in a program for them to go into when they get to that point. Well, why not, with the time and attention we have of these hockey players? I'll just use the CHL as an example. Why are we not doing a few proactive things that can help shape their identity, figure out what they enjoy, get them outside of the hockey culture, outside of that fishbowl that they're going to have to get out of at some point anyways, and allow them to start developing this?
It's an incredibly interesting conversation. And when you get into it, I think the proactive opportunities are there. And I think to some degree, Ben, if we use the Kitchener Rangers as an example, I would say that the Blue Crew program, just as one example, is a proactive program because it's catching the players as they arrive in the league, and they get this insight through the partnership with regional police about a variety of pitfalls that they might encounter.
Totally. And that's what it's all about. I think the one paradox in the behavioral health space is you have to bring in a clinician and you have to sit people down and get them in a, I guess, again, coming back to this clinical approach. But why not do it in meet the individual where they are? We know people don't want to reach out and say they're vulnerable. And I think it's a noble thing to try and create campaigns and programs where we tell people, hey, open up about feeling. Well, it's noble because it's such a steep task. That is deeply rooted human behavior to say, hey, let's force people to reach out and tell us when they're not well. On the flip side is, why don't we, in a paradoxical way, have this happen without the main topic being mental health? Why don't we just talk about other viewpoints in life, other issues you may come across, how you'd work through them? I think that can be quite powerful, and I think you would get less pushback and a little bit more open-mindedness from these youth that are intimidated by the topic.
As always, I appreciate your open-mindedness and your open phone to the texts when I need a favor. It's an important conversation, and I appreciate you being part of it, Ben. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike, and keep your phone charged because I'll be circling back with a favor soon.
You got it. It's my turn in the rotation. Thanks again, Ben.
Thanks, Mike.
The Mike Farwell Show, weekdays from 9 to noon on 570 News.